The housing market is quietly bankrupting millions of Americans, and nobody is warning you. Not your family, not your friends, and certainly not your real estate agent. Today, I'm gonna show you why buying a house, the so-called American dream, has quietly become a financial trap for millions of Americans, even though most people still think it's the smart thing to do. Now, I've paid well over $1 million in rent, and it was some of the best money I ever spent. In fact, I made more money renting than I would have by owning. Yes, renting can actually make you richer. I will show you how. So stick around, because I'll also give you my exact checklist for when buying actually does make sense, and the financial move I would make today if I wanted to become a millionaire. For generations, homeownership has been one of the most deeply held beliefs in American culture. Buy a house, build equity. Congratulations, you're officially on track. It's not just financial advice, it's the American dream. Owning a house is seen as the ultimate symbol of success. It's almost a one-size-fits-all path to wealth. But here's the problem. Most people don't actually run the numbers before they buy. They get frustrated by rising rent. They get pressured by their family. They follow outdated advice, and before they know it, they're signing a 30-year mortgage, convinced they're doing the smart thing. You know, it's a little ironic that I hear from people who tell me, my goal with money is financial freedom, and then they pay 162% of their net worth to lock down a 30-year mortgage where they don't even calculate TCO. Most people think that owning a house will be easy, just like renting, except they get to invest in the house. They sit back and they build equity. We're gonna talk about equity today, and I'm gonna show you how it actually works. Because when the true costs hit, they're shocked by how much they actually have to pay every month. But for a lot of people, by then it's too late.
The psychological burden of debt for me, I know I felt it in my body, in a very, very real way.
I spoke to a couple named Jonathan and Shalom on my podcast. They had just bought their dream house for $730,000 in the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful neighborhood, good schools, felt like the right move. But when they got on the call with me, they told me a different story. Their mortgage was eating up 55% of their take-home pay. They had no savings left, and they needed a new roof. Now, this is what homeownership can turn into. This isn't just one couple's story either. It's happening all across America. Because everywhere you turn, the message is clear. If you're not buying, you're behind. These invisible scripts push people to make the biggest financial decision of their lives, but they never pull out a freaking calculator. You know when you hear people say, I don't want to throw money away on rent? A better comment might be, I don't want to throw money away on interest. A lot of people don't realize this, but most of your mortgage payment goes towards interest, not just for the first year, not just for the first 10 years, for the first 20 years. That means that equity you thought you were building is highly exaggerated for the first 2 decades of owning a house, especially now, because you're probably paying more than you would pay for rent. That's right, it's currently cheaper to rent than to buy in 100% of the top 50 metro cities in the United States. So if your response is, well, what about equity? You just saw that you will pay more towards interest than your principal for the first 20 years. This is just one of the many surprises you're about to discover about buying a house. And I'm sharing this because I want you to be prepared before you make these huge financial decisions so you know exactly what you're getting into. Now, please understand, I'm not against owning a house. Someday I'll even own a house myself. I'm against people making the biggest purchase of their lives without truly understanding it, which leads to stress and arguments and financial strain, including being house poor and not even being able to go out to a restaurant or take a vacation. So let me give you one simple rule to protect yourself from this trap. It's called Ramit's rule of the American dream trap. Never buy a house just because it's what successful people do. That's the fastest way to fall into a financial trap. Here's what you need to know instead. Phantom costs like maintenance and taxes and repairs can often add 30 to 50% on top of your mortgage, making home ownership way more expensive than people expect. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. If you want a simple metric, your total housing costs should stay below 28% of your gross monthly income. Now listen, I understand housing is historically expensive. It's really hard to hit that number. So we can stretch it a little bit. It can be 30, 31, 32, but if your total payment gets more than that, a lot more than that, you cannot afford it. So run the numbers, which I'll show you how to do later, and then decide what's right for your rich life. Now, I'm gonna show you something that's gonna blow your mind. Imagine a scenario where you buy a house, you sell it for more than you bought it for, and you lose money. Think about it. How would that be possible? I'm gonna show you right now. There's a huge myth that if you buy a house, the price always goes up and you magically profit. But that's not how it actually works. Someone bought this condo for $3.695 million in 2021. And just over 2 years later, they sold it for $3.8 million. That's $155,000 more than what they paid for it. So looking at this, you go, wow, they made $155K in profit in 2 years. That's amazing. But they actually didn't. Take a look beneath the surface. Even with that $155,000 gain on the sale, the owner lost more than $795,000 due to transaction costs, maintenance, taxes, missed returns from tying that down payment up, which could have otherwise been invested. Oh, and about $224,000 in interest. Yes, I'm picking this expensive apartment on purpose because I want to show you a really clear example of how much it can actually cost to own. I've got other cities I'm going to show you in this video. We'll get to them in just a minute. But this is what most homeowners don't understand. The price of your house can go up and you can still lose money. But in order to know that, you actually have to run the numbers. And this isn't just a fluke. Even when home values rise, most people end up with less money than they think. So let's look at it a different way. How does this work for practical examples, not just some super expensive New York apartment? Well, let's take the example of the median priced house in the United States. It's about $400,000. Option A, you buy this $407,200 house. You put 20% down or $81,400. You take out $325,000 on a 30-year mortgage at about 6.8% interest rate. Your home appreciates at 3.5% annually, and after 30 years, it's worth about $1.14 million. Hey, pretty amazing. You made about $736,000. That sounds great, right? Not so fast. Just like that New York apartment, let's dig deeper. Here's what you actually paid, and I'm being conservative with these numbers. $443,000 in interest, more than the price of the house. $153,000 in property taxes, $122,000 on maintenance and repairs, $97K on homeowners insurance, and $14K in closing costs. That means your house will cost you $1.24 million over 30 years, which means you actually spent $93,000 more than your house is now worth. You lost money. You just lost money, and I'm showing you the numbers. What did I tell you? It's not just New York, oh, fancy $10 million apartments. No, you lost money on the median priced house right now. Wait a minute. What's that thing I'm hearing? I'm hearing 10,000 people in my comments saying, equity. What about equity? Equity. I'm going to deal with equity here and now. You have equity. It's true. Where is it? Well, your equity is locked up in a house that you currently live in. It's actually not that easy to pull out $50K to invest or $10K to take a family vacation. You need to use complicated financial instruments, or if you decide to sell it, where are you going to live now? Let's take a look at a different option. Option B, you rent and invest. Let's take a look at a calculation. We've got the house costing $407,000. The rent would cost around $1,800. Plan to stay there for 30 years, mortgage at about 6.7, 6.8%, 20% down payment. And we want to assume that the price of the house and the price of rent are both going to go up over time. Many things go up over time just purely because of inflation and other reasons. We also want to assume that we are going to invest the difference. We'll factor in some other things like property taxes. Again, you can disagree with some of these numbers, but they're just assumptions. And we can quickly see that in this example, renting saves over $1 million over 30 years. That's quite remarkable. And in many cities, you can actually rent a nicer place in a nicer location with no maintenance and the ability to move if your job or family requires it. And best of all, you can access your money. Ramit's wealth rule of homeownership. A house that you're living in is not an investment. It is simply a place to live with massive costs. You know, most people think buying a house is a smart investment. But if it were an investment, you would treat it as an investment. You would run the numbers. You would benchmark it against the S&P 500 or whatever financial instrument you're trying to compare to. Most people buy a house because they want a house and then they justify it. But they have no idea what they're actually paying. And the worst part is, since people believe that home ownership automatically builds wealth, they think, why pay rent when I could be putting that money towards a mortgage? But buying a house is not the same as renting. It's not even close. Let me show you the real difference. Here's what you need to know. Your rent is the maximum you will pay, and your mortgage is the minimum. That's because your mortgage is just one part of the total cost of ownership. Let's look at a real example from Dallas, Texas. Here are two actual houses in the same neighborhood, and you're gonna be surprised when you see the real numbers. Let's say you're renting this 3-bed, 2-bath house in Dallas for $2,500 a month. Over 10 years, assuming rent goes up 3.5% per year, you'd pay about $350,000. That money means no closing costs, no surprise repairs or trips to Home Depot, and you're paying for peace of mind and flexibility. Or you could buy a comparable home. The same number of rooms, same square footage, for about $470,000. Now, before I go on, which one would you do? Would you buy or would you rent? Well, let's take a look at what happens if you buy. You put 20% down, which is $94,000. That gives you a monthly mortgage of $2,466. It's basically the same price as the rental. By the way, these two properties are literally a 3-minute drive from each other. Here's what buying that house actually costs you over 10 years. Your mortgage interest will be $242,000. Your property taxes will be $94,000. By the way, don't forget, property taxes go up regularly, especially if you increase your house's value through significant renovations. Maintenance and repairs, $70K. Homeowners insurance, $53K. Closing costs, $16K. Opportunity cost, which means the money you could have made by investing that down payment, $91,000. The total cost of ownership, at a minimum, $714,000 over 10 years. That is more than double what you would pay renting a similar house with a similar monthly cost. Do you see how crazy this math is? You have two houses, same square footage, same neighborhood. They appear to rent or be purchased for the same monthly amount, but when you actually look beneath the surface, the numbers are completely different. Please remember, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy a house. I'm saying you need to understand the math for the biggest purchase you ever made. This isn't walking into freaking Payless and buying a $30 pair of shoes. That's not what this is. This is the biggest purchase you'll ever make. Learn this. I know a lot of you about to close this window. Ramit Sethi, anti-homeownership. Oh, what's so weird? Why is this the hill he chose to die on? I'm not dying anytime soon except from a heart attack at seeing your poor use of math. The next response people have to this is, at least I'm building equity. Well, we already talked about equity in the last section of this video when we looked at the amortization of the first 20 years. And then you know what the next thing they say is? Well, at least if I own, then I can sell it one day and make my money back. Maybe. Let's dig into what you are really signing up for when you buy. Phantom costs, or those invisible costs that most of us are not aware of, show why the monthly payment alone does not tell the full story. See, when you buy, your mortgage might stay the same, but your total costs will go up. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, and sometimes way more than rent because of these phantom costs. These invisible costs include closing fees, maintenance and repairs, property taxes, missing investment opportunities, money that could have otherwise been invested, bad luck, divorce, layoffs, etc. And remember, when something breaks, you are paying. Here are 5 real-life costs you'll probably face as a homeowner. Roof replacements, $9,500. HVAC, $7,500. Water heater replacement, $1,300. Foundation repair, $10K. New appliances, $5K. I just got off the phone with my mom. They found termites in their house. They have to leave their house for 3 days while they put up those freaking Breaking Bad tents around it, where the people break in and do drugs or whatever. That's what they're doing, and it's gonna cost them thousands. Now, when you own a house, things are going to break. It's not a question of if, it's when and how much is it gonna cost. If we were actually treating our houses like a financial investment, you should be setting aside hundreds of dollars a month, every month, just for maintenance that might happen 4 years, 7 years, 13 years from now. How many people are actually doing that? Almost nobody. When you look at the total costs, it can actually be quite shocking, especially when you compare it to renting. In very expensive cities, the number actually blows your mind. In fact, the house that I rent right now would cost more than twice as much to own. More than twice! That's thousands and thousands of dollars more just to own the same place I'm renting. This is exactly why I created a simple rule for buying a house. Ramit's housing rule of phantom costs. Only buy if you plan to stay there for at least 10 years. That is the only way to spread out these invisible costs. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say it costs $50,000 to sell your house. If you sell after 1 year, that's $50,000 a year in costs. But if you stay for 10 years, that's $5,000 a year in those costs, or $416 a month, which is much more affordable. So you can see that time plays a huge factor in the decision to buy versus rent. Next, I'm gonna show you how well-meaning advice from your parents, friends, even your coworkers, often convinces people to make the biggest financial decision of their lives without ever running the numbers. It's profound and it's very, very hidden under the surface. If you actually look at how wealthy people spend their money versus the middle class, wealthy people spend way less of their money proportionally on housing. But I think there's something much deeper than this, and that is that Americans hate the idea of doing anything that they consider poor. If you don't believe me, let's do a little experiment. Pick up your phone, text your parents right now, ask them what they're doing this weekend, and then innocently suggest that they take the bus. Just take the bus. Have you thought about taking the bus? Leave a comment below. What is their reaction? They're not just gonna say no, or, upon reflection, that would actually take about 26 minutes longer. No, they're gonna react with indignation, bewilderment, and most of all, disgust. Ugh, a bus? Ugh. That's because deep down, most people in America think only poor people take the bus, and Americans hate the idea of doing what poor people do. This is crazy. I love a good bus. It's fast, it's easy. I took the 22 all the time while I was writing my book in San Francisco. A lot of people don't buy a house purely because it makes financial sense. They buy one because everyone around them is telling them to, and because they don't want to do what other people do, which is rent. Ugh. Hold on. What's that smell? It's somebody renting. On my podcast, I spoke with Chris and Camila, a couple making nearly $300,000 a year. They told me they bought a vacation house, not because they needed one, but because their friends, some of whom make less money than they do, were buying nicer houses. And that pressure to keep up, to look successful, to have the life, pushed them into a purchase they now regret. This story is not unusual. This is actually exactly how people end up house poor. They buy because of FOMO. They don't actually calculate how much it's truly gonna cost you. They don't make decisions about what they're gonna cut back on. And their parents tell them and their friends tell them, and they're tired of feeling behind, and they worry, if we don't buy now, we're never gonna be able to afford it. I've felt this pressure too. People used to come over to my apartment and they would look out the window, wow, that's a nice view. And then they would ask, do you own this place? And when I said, no, I rent, you could feel the vibe change. The energy suddenly shifted. And it was first judgment and then confusion. Wait a second. This is the I will teach you to be rich guy, and he rents? Again, deep down, there's this belief in America that if you are successful, of course you should own a house, which implies renting means you are falling behind. So I stayed a renter by choice. I invested the difference and came out way ahead. That actually allowed me to rent a better place in a better neighborhood than I would have got by owning. Plus, no maintenance, no screwdrivers, no Home Depot. So let me be clear. That line, renting is throwing money away, is one of the most destructive invisible scripts we've been fed. I want you to make a careful decision based on your finances and your rich life. That phrase pressures people into buying houses they can't afford, and it costs them way more than they realize. So if you've ever felt that pressure to buy, I want you to remember something. Remember this rule, Ramit's rule of buying for you. Don't buy a house to impress anyone. Not your parents, not your friends, not Instagram. Buy it if you run the numbers and you consider the non-financial parts of your rich life. If your decision is based on what other people think, you're gonna end up with their version of success, not yours. All jokes aside, if you decide you want a suburban house, or you want a duplex, or you want to live near the beach or in the mountains or whatever, I totally respect that. Your rich life is not mine. Mine is gonna be different than yours. That's the way it should be. But I beg you to run the numbers and to get clear about what your rich life is. Now, if you are unsure what's right for your rich life, this is exactly where a great financial planner can help, like the ones at our partner, Facet. Facet will help you understand and expand your financial opportunities by providing you flexible access to a team of financial planners, CFP professionals, and a team of professionals providing guidance across retirement planning, tax strategy, estate planning, and more. The best part? Unlike traditional advisors who charge a percentage of your assets for financial planning, which can easily cost tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime, Facet charges an affordable flat membership fee. I've worked with them to help many couples on my podcast understand specific things. Can they retire early? Can they pay for their kids' college? Can they be more generous or take better vacations every year? If you've ever wished you had a smart team to help guide you through your biggest financial decisions, check them out. You can head to facet.com/Ramit or click the link below to set up a free call and find out if it's a fit for you. Because once you start making decisions based on your values, not somebody else's, everything changes. Okay, now that we have taken apart the myth that buying is always better, let's turn the corner and talk about when it actually makes sense to buy a house. And I'm gonna show you the exact checklist that I use, the same one that I've used to help couples decide if buying is right for them. Now, I'll probably buy a house one day myself. I'm not against it at all. But here's how I'll do it. First, I will run the numbers carefully. Second, I will consider all the emotional and lifestyle factors. Do I wanna buy a house? What area? Do I wanna renovate? Why am I doing this? See, people skip part one. They just skip right over it and go to part two. Ooh, I love a bathtub. Ooh, I really want this nook where I can sip my coffee in the morning, even though I know I'm not actually ever gonna do that. Guys, this isn't ordering freaking pasta at Olive Garden. Ooh, give me the one with the white sauce and the breadsticks. I love it. This is the biggest financial decision of your life. That's why you start with the numbers first. We are going to get clear about buying a house when it makes sense for us. And I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna blow your mind right now. I actually don't even mind if you run the numbers and you still decide to buy for non-financial reasons. You might find that it's actually gonna cost you more to own, and you go, yeah, I'm okay with that. I want to do that because of children or a specific renovation I wanna do, or I just plain want to buy a house. Amazing. It's your rich life. It's not mine. If you make a conscious decision and you run the numbers, I'm all for your decision. This happens a lot. One of my friends bought a house in New Jersey, and they ran the numbers and they admitted it does not make financial sense, but they're still gonna do it anyway because they know the area, they wanna raise their kids there, and that's their decision. I loved it. That's the kind of decision I wanna see you making, one that is thoughtful and filled with analysis and honesty, self-reflection. Because remember, owning a house is not just a financial decision, it's deeply emotional. And that's okay. What I am against is buying a house that turns into a nightmare just because you didn't fully understand what you were signing up for. So let's make sure that you are making a conscious choice. Here's my 5-point checklist to know if you are truly ready to buy. Number 1, you'll stay in that house for at least 10 years. Buying and selling a house is expensive. If you move out in 3 to 5 years, you will often lose money. Number 2, you have a 20% down payment saved on top of emergency savings. Now, you don't have to put down 20%, but in my opinion, you should have that money set aside. Why? Because it shows financial discipline. It also gives you more flexibility with loan options and rates. But most importantly, it sends a signal to yourself and potentially your partner that you have the discipline to be able to save, especially importantly for those unexpected expenses that will come your way. Number 3, you understand the total monthly cost, and that number is ideally below 28% of your gross monthly income. Remember, I'm not just talking about the mortgage, I'm talking about TCO, total cost of ownership, which includes property taxes, maintenance, insurance, transaction fees, HOA fees, all of it. If you can't hit the 28% number, which is difficult to hit these days, you know the number and you have plans for what to do if something goes wrong. Number 4, you're okay if the value of your house goes down. Real estate values fluctuate. If the market drops 10%, are you gonna panic? Will it wreck your finances? I want you to be emotionally and financially prepared for that possibility. And number 5, I really find this one important. You truly want to buy a house. You want it. Not to impress your friends, not because your family is telling you to do it, not out of guilt or shame or FOMO. You want to buy a house because it's part of your rich life. Now, let's bring this to life with real numbers. The median house in the US is $407,000. So here's what it would actually look like if you wanted to buy that house responsibly. With 20% down, your monthly mortgage would be $2,137. You can add 50% phantom costs, and that will bring you to a total monthly payment of $3,204. Now, personally, I'm gonna tell you right now, that is a very conservative calculation. I actually don't think that the majority of people are paying 50% in phantom costs. I will one day, but that's because I'm gonna buy a very expensive place and I'm never going to pick up a wrench. I'm gonna hire people who are gonna come over, they're gonna put those little booties on, and then they're gonna rip me off because they can tell the minute they walk in, I don't know about anything. Oh, this fridge, this costs $16,000 to repair. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good bargain. Here you go. That's 50% in phantom costs because I'm a dumb. You probably won't pay 50, but you'll probably pay something like 25, maybe even more. So I'm being super conservative with this number for you, okay? So let's walk through that 5-point checklist using this real world example. Will you stay there for at least 10 years? Well, if not, you risk losing money from transaction costs, mortgage interest, etc. If yes, you're gonna spread those costs out over time, which is good. Number 2, do you have that 20% down payment saved? Well, that's $81,440. If you don't have it, to me, that's a red flag. If you have it on top of your emergency fund, that's great. Number 3, is your housing cost below 28% of your gross income? At $3,204 a month, that's $38,448 a year. That means you would need to be earning at least $138,000 a year for this number to stay under 28%. If you make less than that, you can't afford this house right now. If you make more than $138K, you're in good shape. Number 4, are you emotionally and financially okay if the value of your house drops 10%? If that would ruin your day or cause you to panic, you're not ready. If you would be okay with this, great, continue on. Number 5, do you truly want to buy this house? This is the big one. The numbers might work, but do you actually want this house for your rich life? Envision it. Be specific. Think about all the amazing things that can go right. It could be customizing the house. It could be creating family traditions. Really luxuriate in those visions. Also consider what could go wrong. There's termites, there's a repair, the deck has a hole in it. Think about it, then decide. Now, if you're buying this house because you feel pressured into it, it's probably not the right move for you. If this fits into your vision of a rich life, that's a great sign. If you can answer yes to all 5 questions, I love it. That's great. But if even one of those questions made you pause or feel queasy, it's okay to wait. It's okay to rent. It might actually be the smarter move. Ramit's rule of intentional buying. Run the numbers first, then factor in the emotional reasons. And that's important because buying a house is not just about math. It's about your lifestyle, your peace of mind, your values. That's why I use this 5-point checklist. Ask yourself and answer these questions honestly. Remember, buying a house should never be a reaction. It should never be playing defense. Prices are going up. I better hurry and catch them. Don't do that. It should be a carefully thought out, well-reasoned, well-articulated decision. Well, we've looked at the buy versus rent numbers. We've calculated how much it's going to cost us in interest. We know that if we stay there for at least 23 years, which we've planned to, this is essentially how much we can expect. We've put money aside so that when we have to repair the roof in roughly 10 to 15 years, we're already ready to go. And we continue to invest and we have an emergency fund. That sounds like somebody who's playing offense with the biggest purchase of their lives. If you're still not sure, let me show you why renting could be your smartest financial move yet. Let me say something that shocks a lot of people. I'm a multimillionaire and I rent. In fact, I rent 2 apartments, one in California, one in New York. Yes, I could write a check tomorrow for a house, but I don't. Why? Because I want control over my time and money. First, I want my money growing, not stuck in an expensive, illiquid asset where I can't access it. Next, I want the ability to move when I want to. I don't want to have something burdening me down. I don't want to have to sell. I don't want paperwork. I don't want stress. And most importantly, I want 0 weekend projects. I don't want to fix anything. I just don't like it. So if something breaks, I text the landlord and it is fixed. I'm sharing this because renting is not a failure. It is a strategy, especially in high cost of living cities, but increasingly in many cities across America. It can actually be a smart financial move once you run the numbers. Now, I have to tell you, there is a catch. I have used the money that I saved renting to invest aggressively. And that helped me to grow my net worth, to take guilt-free trips to my favorite places around the world. And the results have been quite shocking. I have personally made more money renting and investing the difference over 20 years than I would have made by owning. So here's what you get by renting. Number 1, flexibility. You want to move for a job or try a new city or live abroad for a year? You can. No expensive realtor fees, no open houses, no fixing the deck or remodeling the kitchen before you try to sell. Number 2, cash flow. Instead of putting $80,000 into a down payment, or even more depending on where you live, you can invest that money and make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars over time. And unlike home equity, that money stays liquid, ready whenever you need it. Number 3, peace of mind. This one is really important for me personally. When your water heater explodes at 2 a.m., call the landlord. When the faucet is dripping, text the landlord. Not my problem, which is exactly what I want. Now, let me show you exactly how renting, when done correctly, can make you millions. Yes, renting can make you richer. Remember that house in Dallas, Texas from earlier? Rent was $2,500 a month. Buying was a $2,466 mortgage, plus around $1,942 in phantom costs, like taxes, maintenance, insurance, which came out to $4,408 a month. That's a $1,908 a month difference. Now let me take that example and show you how you might apply this idea of renting and investing the difference. Let's say you choose to rent. You take that $1,908 every month and you invest it into a low-cost index fund, which earns 7% on average after inflation. Okay? We're making some assumptions here. They're all very conservative assumptions. Over 30 years, that monthly payment would grow into over $2.2 million. So while this buyer was bending over, showing their crack with their freaking belt, and they're painting the baseboards. Why is so much sweat mixing into my paint? Why is this happening to me? You were building true wealth. Look at my hand. You see the hand? Can we get in tight on this? That's a hand of a man who's never picked up an Allen wrench. And this is the face of a person who doesn't even know what an Allen wrench actually is. Guys, this is the part that nobody realizes. If you run the numbers, and if it is cheaper to rent than to own, and listen carefully, you rent and invest the difference. Invest the difference. You can end up wealthier, freer, and in my opinion, way more relaxed than some stressed out homeowner. Which is why I have developed Ramit's rule of strategic renting. Renting is not a failure, but if you rent, you must invest the difference to put that money to work. So if it costs you $800 a month to rent or $2,000 a month to own, you've got to take that $1,200 a month difference and invest it. Okay, fine, you might not invest all of it. Maybe you invest 300, 500, 700. The point is, if you are renting, you must be investing aggressively. Otherwise, you're doomed. Okay? All the people who are like, oh, I don't want to end up in retirement and then it's raining and I have no place to live. Don't do that. All right, let me break it down how to run the numbers for yourself. No more guessing. No more should I rent or buy. I'll show you exactly how to make this decision right now using the math. Now it's time to figure out if buying or renting is better for you. Here's how to do it. Use the New York Times buy versus rent calculator. I really love this tool. It's free to use. I've used it with podcast guests and friends, and even with people who are about to sign a mortgage that they could not afford. I'm gonna link it for you in the description below. This calculator is a great way to easily see if buying or renting is a better financial decision for you. So you're gonna plug in several different factors into the calculator. And what you'll get is a clear answer on whether renting or buying is a better financial decision. So let's walk through a specific example. Let's compare this 3-bed, 2-bath house in the Mount Lebanon area of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Current asking price is about $280,000. And only a 1-minute drive away is a 3-bed, 1.5-bath house renting for $2,000 a month. We're gonna plug these numbers into the New York Times buy versus rent calculator. Let's move down to the mortgage details section. With current rates around 7%, we're gonna use that for our calculation. 20% down payment, 30-year mortgage. Now let's move to the what does the future hold section, because this is really important. You can leave the home price growth rate, the rent growth rate, and inflation at about 3%. But I want you to adjust that investment return rate to 10%. This number is the nominal return rate that the stock market has returned over the past roughly 100 years. Leave that inflation number at 3%, which will make sure that after inflation, we're getting that 7% return that I always mention. That is what's called the real return. Everything below this section you can leave as is until you know the specifics of the area you're looking at. Now let's scroll up and play with the variable of time. If you plan to stay at either of these places for only 5 years, then renting saves you $18,000. If you stay for 10 years, it doesn't really matter if you buy or rent. That's one of the examples where you can see time is on your side when it comes to buying. Not always, but often. But notice that it's not until you're 26 that buying actually makes more financial sense, saving you $82,000. Now, please note this major caveat. This usually only works if you're investing while renting. If you're not investing, then buying a house is usually a better financial decision because you're simply not putting money away anywhere else. This is actually how most Americans deal with their money. The bulk of their net worth is in their house, not because housing is a great financial decision. It's because it's the only financial decision they really ever made. I think that's really risky to have the bulk of your net worth in one geographically undiversified, illiquid asset with high holding costs, which you're not really sure how to get the money out of it. If we move that investment return rate to 0%, buying this house becomes a better move starting as early as year 4. That's very common for most people. But if you are renting and investing, in many cases, buying rarely makes more financial sense. Real estate does not automatically make you rich. And if you want a better plan to get rich, here's exactly what I would do to become a millionaire starting right now.